1980s, they decided, you know what? They're pretty much economically devastated. Roll the crack in. Roll the crack in. And when they rolled the crack in, the black man who's now unemployed
Mm-hmm.
and feeling inferior as a man because he
Depressed.
can't take care of his
Right.
family,
Right. Yep.
he's either going to smoke that to deal with his economic depression,
Correct.
or he's going to sell that to try to pay the bills. We're the only people who still send our children to our enemies every day to get an education, although we could afford to build our own schools. Black America is allergic to responsibility for itself. Black America is allergic to accountability for itself. And Black America is absolutely disinterested in building up its own institutions, services, and programs.
So, Dr. Umar, to go back to your curriculum, I know when we heard you speak last week, you talked about college and trade school. So is your school going to be more college prep or trade school or a combination of both?
All that and more.
Okay.
All that and more, because we're a leadership academy. So the children will automatically be prepared for college. That goes without saying. As far as the trades go, once the Honorable Frederick Douglass High School is fully renovated, because we haven't began on that one yet. Once the Frederick Douglass High School is fully renovated, we plan to have at least 4 of the major building trades in there. We want to have carpentry, plumbing, electric, and HVAC. That's our goal. If we only end up with 2 of them, I'm still happy with that. Most high schools don't have any of them.
Okay. So when did you feel, and this is I'm pivoting for 1 second, about the strength of the Black family. Do you feel that there was a time period where it was identifiable that it was being targeted to crumble or fall apart?
Yes, they began deliberately targeting the Black family in the 1970s, right after they assassinated Dr. King. That's when they really saw the Black family as the power base. Up until the 70s, they saw the Black organization as the power base, right? And then I would say from slavery until the civil rights era, they saw the Black church as the power base. But in the 1970s, they began seeing the Black family as the power base. And so they said, okay, all these Black power movements are being funded by Black households. Let's destroy the household. And the first thing you got to do to destroy the household is destroy the Black man's ability to provide for the household. So in 1970, they deindustrialized the inner cities. They went into Baltimore. They went into Philadelphia. They went into Richmond. They went into New York, Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, Little Rock. And they took out the skills that pay the bills from the high schools. Up until 1970, you could learn how to be a plumber in high school, electrician in high school, auto mechanic in high school, roofer in high school, HVAC tech in high school. They took those programs out, and then they also shut down the factory jobs that were in the inner city. Black people lost tens of thousands of factory jobs in the decade of the 1970s, and even more in the 1980s. And Bill Clinton didn't do us any favors in the 1990s either. So once they shut down the jobs and then shut down your ability to learn the skills, that began the impoverishment of the Black community. And then the CIA showed up in 1980 and dropped off the crack. The crack couldn't come until 80, because as long as you had a job, you didn't have a need for the crack. So in order to turn the Black economy into a drug-based economy, you had to kill jobs and job training. So 1970s was the decade of killing jobs and killing job training in the high school. 1980s, they decided, you know what? They're pretty much economically devastated. Roll the crack in. Roll the crack in. And when they rolled the crack in, the Black man who's now unemployed and feeling inferior as a man because he can't take care of his family, he's either going to smoke that crack to deal with his economic depression, or he's going to sell that crack to try to pay the bills. Here's the thing. Whether you smoking it or whether you selling it, you're still in possession of it. And being in possession of it gets you a charge. So here comes Bill Clinton in the 1990s with the Bill Clinton crime bill.
Yes.
Now you go to jail for mandatory minimum sentences. Mandatory. The judge has no discretionary power at all. 5 grams of crack, you doing 20 years.
Yeah.
And if you come in here 3 strikes and you out, if you come in here 3 times, you'll be in jail for the rest of your life. You talk about the destruction of the black family. Unemployment, crack, mass incarceration.
Yeah.
Need I say more? And then the 2000s come. That is George W. Bush, right? And the black community is reeling from massive unemployment. We still are. Massive drug devastation. We still are.
Absolutely.
Massive mass incarceration. We still are. So the black community says we got to do something about this. It's the year 2000. We in a whole new century, a whole new millennium. We got to do something about that. And George Bush says, okay, this is what we're going to do. They're going to try to make the black church the power base again to deal with these new problems. They're going to try to make the black church the power base again to deal with these new problems. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to economically neutralize the black church by doing what? Creating the faith-based initiative. Faith-based FBI. The black church became the new FBI agent in the black community. George Bush made them eligible for federal grants.
Unknowingly.
How could he do this when the Constitution clearly says there's a separation between church and state?
Right.
But George Bush found a way to kill that. And for the past 23 years, black churches have qualified for federal grants. So let me ask you a question. Name me a church in Baltimore that's at the forefront of fighting for better schools. Name me a church in Baltimore that's at the forefront of fighting against police genocide. Name me a church in Baltimore that's at the forefront of fighting against gentrification or economic apartheid. You can't. You can't. You know why? Because every church knows if we become radical, if we become activists, we're not going to get no money. So every black church in America, just about everyone, you have a few exceptions, have sold their soul to the same devil they're claiming to keep you away from.
Wow. So what is your advice on us as a race rebuilding the black family? Where can we go from here?
Well, first of all, you can only have a conversation about rebuilding the black family with people who want to rebuild the black family.
Right.
Because as you can see, we got so many of our brothers, they don't want to rebuild the black family. They want to build a snow bunny family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of black women want to build a snow puppy family.
Right.
You understand?
I got you.
So if we're talking about people who really care about the future of the black community, first of all, we all got to understand something. We are all victims of internalized racism. All of us. All of us. That's where we start from. Admit you are sick so you can heal.
Yeah.
When somebody comes to sit on my therapy couch, you have to admit you a drug addict, admit you an alcoholic, admit you addicted to food, admit you got low self-esteem.
Right.
We can't fix a problem that we don't admit exists. And that is part of the black reality. We won't even admit that we have been affected by slavery psychologically. We won't even admit it. We won't even admit it. Even though we're the only people who don't have a racial agenda or identity, for that matter. We're the only people who does not weaponize their money to improve their situation. We're the only people who still send our children to our enemies every day to get an education, although we could afford to build our own schools. Black America is allergic to responsibility for itself. Black America is allergic to accountability for itself. And Black America is absolutely disinterested in building up its own institutions, services, and programs. We want no part of building up our own community, which is such a contradiction because everywhere you go, somebody's talking Black Wall Street.
Right.
Everywhere you go, we celebrating Tulsa, Oklahoma. How are we going to sit around talking about Tulsa or Rosewood or Charleston or Wilmington, North Carolina, when we don't even want to use any of our discretionary money to contribute to the fund that will create independent Black institutions? We don't have a Black Wall Street nowhere in this country.
Right.
50 million Africans, spread across 50 states. That's 1 million blacks
Yeah.
per state. Nowhere you go, and I've been everywhere,
Yes.
nowhere you go will you find a black-owned independent school, a black-owned independent bank, a black-owned independent hospital, a black-owned independent supermarket. Nowhere in this country, although we gross $2 trillion a year, and Negroes will tell you they're not affected by internalized racism.
Yeah.
White supremacy is evil. It is the most diabolical human system ever created. It's also exploitative. They exploit everything for money. Any problem you got, they gonna make some money off of it. Oh, yes. They'll make money off your disease. They'll make money off your homelessness. They'll make money off your drug addiction. They'll make money off your child's miseducation. They'll make money off of everything. White supremacy is a system of exploitation, domination, and exploitation.